Hey guys, my name is Shawn Kanungo. Thank you so much for that introduction, and I want to thank you for having me here. I'm honored and privileged to be here. We are here in this 750-person theater in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And part of the reason why we're here is because we can be. I don't know when this thing will be full again. But I want to congratulate all the amazing winners. Just hearing some of those stories, it was fantastic. And I can't wait to chat with you guys about my favorite topic, which is around disruption. Disruption. To me, disruption is, you okay there, cameraman? Listen, that's what disruption means. Just knocking the cameraman a little bit. This is what I spent my entire career in, around innovation and disruption, helping organizations navigate the space. And guess what? We have seen the most disruption ever over the last year. And I need your help during this entire presentation. I need you to engage. So you see the QR code right below me. Whether you are in the Foxconn Globe or you are doing this online, there's a QR code. And if the QR code doesn't work, then you can use the menti.com. There's a code there. I'm going to be asking you a whole bunch of questions. Some polls, some crowdsourced questions, just to increase the engagement a little bit. So I really need your help, whether you're in you're in Foxconn or you're online. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing this. And by the way, to help me out today is my friend. Her name is Masa Adelbi. She's the manager of HR at an amazing construction company here in Canada. Masa, do you want to say hello to the audience?
Hi, everyone.
Now, were you nervous coming here, by the way? A little bit? No.
A little bit.
No butterflies before coming? Just a little bit? Okay, well listen, we're gonna have a lot of fun. This is really all about having fun. She's gonna be taking a look at some of the polling questions, and I'm gonna ask it to you in a little bit. And yes, I'm broadcasting to you live here from Canada. And to be honest with you, I think, the part of the reason why I'm here is for trade relationships between Racine County and Canada. We got maple syrup. That's what we're known for in Canada. You guys got the Kringle. I think it's a perfect combination, Let's take over the world. Us together. Let's take over the world. Let's do it. I'm going to ask you one question just to start. Again, QR code. I don't think I need to explain this, guys, right? We're like 16 months into the pandemic, so QR code. The question I want to ask to you is, what does disruption mean to you? What does disruption mean to you? I want to know what everybody has to say. Now, I'm just going to get it out of the way. The big disruption over the last year, especially in Racine County, was where everyone is right now, which is in Foxconn. The big disruption this year. And to be honest with you, I have spent the last number of months reading every single article that was written on Foxconn, every single take. I saw every single take, every single video. Like, I'm watching local news. I'm watching TMJ4, seeing what they're saying. I'm watching what Seth Meyers is saying. I'm even in the middle of the night, I'm watching two beautiful gentlemen talk about the economics of this entire thing. Great. And by the way, I really love his cardigan. If you can find this gentleman, I really love his cardigan, fashionista. And of course, this has been a meteorite, an asteroid that has sort of hit the region. And I believe that this might be an amazing opportunity. That's what I believe in. Disruption to me is opportunity. And I want to see what everybody has to say. But to me, because I spent my entire career in this disruption space, this is what I'll tell you with disruption. Disruption always starts out as a joke. Disruption always starts out as a joke. I mean, if you look at every single disruptive technology that has ever existed, it always starts out as a joke. The printing press, the printing press started when the majority of the world was illiterate. It sounded like a joke. I mean, flight, planes, the fact that we would put people on wood and metal and then fly them around the world, it sounded like a joke. The internet, the fact that we can connect people around the world, I mean, it sounds like a joke. I mean, even if you look at some of the most disruptive companies today, it sounds like a joke, right? TikTok, who would imagine all these kids doing these dances? Everybody would have said that it's cringy, and it potentially is, but they're a juggernaut. Airbnb, you pitch somebody this idea, it sounds like it's an idea for serial killers, you know what I mean? Today we have Bitcoin and NFTs. I mean, the fact that you can buy imaginary goods with imaginary money, I mean, it sounds like a joke. And here's the whole thing with disruption, is that disruption always starts out as a joke until the joke is on us. And that's why it's important not to disregard the the disruptive thinkers and the disruptors, because you never know when these are going to really come to fruition. So I want to come back to you, Masa. What are people saying in the poll results? What does disruption mean to you?
Sure. So the head of the game is changing the game. We have most of the answers at changing the game.
Okay.
Opportunity as well as opportunity and changing the game are the top.
We have some positivity. Where did fear show up, by the way? Where did fear show up?
Fear, we have nothing.
Nothing.
We have some confusion and a little bit one for COVID-19.
Okay, well, we're going to try to dispel that confusion. I love that we're starting with some positivity. Thank you for engaging. That's exactly how we're going to do it. The answer is, I don't know what the right answer is, but to me, disruption is really around opportunity. Pre-pandemic, we were seeing an extraordinary amount of change because of accelerating technologies. And now because of the pandemic, it's just accelerating. And if you study innovation like I have, if you look at every single, a period where there's strife and warfare and chaos and confusion, there's actually great opportunity that comes from that. And that's what we're going to really talk about today is how do we embrace disruption as an opportunity? How do we actually get in disruptors' mindset? And how do we eventually sort of disrupt ourselves? That's what we're going to talk about. Now, the agenda for today is this. We're going to be talking about three things. Number one is what are the skills and the mindset required for disruptor? Because I want to turn you guys into a disruptor. Number two is how do we sort of play in this space? How do we build our own sort of what I call innovation capital? And number three is really this, I'm going to introduce this concept to you, which is all about denting the outside, which is a way of disrupting yourself and also a way of us evolving. And I'm going to tell you why that's so important, even in this new era that Racine County is going to be in and with Foxconn in the mix as well. Now, I want to ask you another question. Again, you can use the QR code right below me there. The question is this. What do you believe are the most important skills needed for a digital world? What do you think are the most important skills that are needed in a digital world? Put it in the poll. I want to know what everybody has to say. This question is actually near and dear to my heart for a number of different reasons. Number one is that, pre-pandemic, this is what I talk to leaders about in the private boardrooms, and now on, Zoom, that's what I'm talking to leaders about. And they actually privately tell me the same thing, which is our talent does not have the skills needed for the future. We don't have the skills needed for the future. And I always argue that yes, we do. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. So that's the number one reason. Number two reason why this question is important to me is because, I got two kids. I got a 4-year-old named Maya and I got a 2-year-old named Dion. He's named after Deion Sanders because, I love prime time. I don't know why he's always naked I don't know why he doesn't like to wear a shirt. But, this is what my wife and I are talking about all the time. Like, what skills will be relevant for them in the future? What jobs are they going to have in the future? That's what we're talking about all the time. So, Masa, I'm going to come back to you. And by the way, I'm going to ask you this question because, you're in HR and you're dealing with new talent, new skills all the time. What do you think are the most important skills for this digital world?
So to me, I would say adaptability for sure. It's like being comfortable, not knowing all the answers, and the fact to encourage some risk taking. So rewarding, encouraging, creating this psychological safety for people to take risks and discover and fail, try. This is what is important for a digital world.
Love that. And what are people saying in the poll there?
Okay, so we have quite a bit of adaptability, creativity.
Good, okay.
Accepting change, agility, device interactions.
No like technical stuff. Okay, that's good. So we're
being nimble, tech savvy, open-minded.
Okay, we're on the same page. Well, to me, why this is a difficult question, and Racine County is, part of your mandate is around jobs, and everybody wants to see more jobs, and part of that is really predicting what jobs are going to be relevant in the future. It's almost impossible to do. Sometimes I get worried about what are my kids going to do in the future? What is going to be relevant for the future for my kids? And then I have to remind myself that the jobs in the future have not been created yet because the industries have not been created yet. I mean, if you look at the last 10 to 15 years, now you have new jobs like blockchain developers and bot managers and data scientists and esports athletes, equity, diversity, and inclusion officers, podcast clip makers. I'm investing in this company called Your MD where they're really focusing on telehealth physicians. I mean, a lot of these jobs didn't exist 10 to 15 years ago, but they exist today. So that's number one reason why it's difficult to predict the skills and the jobs of the future. That's number one. Number two is that you have all these emerging technologies that are really accelerating very quickly, and they're converging. They're colliding with one another. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things, 5G, etc. That's why you're going to have things like the autonomous, connected, and electric shared vehicle in itself, for example, is going to create its own industries that you or I can't even think about. I mean, this is how disruptive it's really going to be. And I know, there might be some really exciting plans around this related to Foxconn. And, this is the whole thing. We can't predict what the future is really going to be, what industries will be relevant. Number three, the third reason why I think it's difficult to predict the skills of the future is because now you have things like automation, artificial intelligence. Really, this is what people are talking about now, right? There's a lot of hype that will robots take my job? And by the way, if you want to know if a robot will take your job, there's actually a really great site. It's called willrobotstakemyjob.com. And I recommend everybody to go on it. Not now, but I recommend everybody to go on it. And I actually did a bit of research last night to see how some people in this room would do in a world of automation. So I put in engineers, because I know at Foxconn there's a lot of engineers, to see how you would do in a world of automation. 1.4%, totally safe. Congratulations. And then what I did is I put in a job like lawyers, because we all love lawyers, 3.5%. Again, totally safe. And then I put a random job in like accounting, just to see how they would do in a world of automation. And they ended up being 94% and completely doomed. I don't know. I'm sorry, actually, for the accountants. No, I'm joking. Listen, accounting's going to be a great job. Yeah, automation's not going to take these jobs. But this is what people are talking about. Like, how is automation going to impact our tasks? The fourth thing that's going to impact the skills of the future is that we're moving into this new era, what I call the era of the individual. The balance of power is shifting from institutions to individuals. And if you don't believe me, this is why you're seeing all these things trend over the last year, really during the pandemic. Things like NFTs and the creator economy and Bitcoin and remote work, gig economy, solopreneurs. Like, the fact of the matter is we have all the media and technology and talent accessible in our pocket. And so the barriers to entry have been eliminated. And now we're moving into a world where the individual is more empowered than ever before. So, like, going back to the question, like, what are the most important skills of the future? And I love that you actually, you already knew the trick, right? You already knew what the result was, which is, I believe, the ability to be creative, to have empathy, intuition, imagination. I actually believe that it's this idea of being a deep generalist with a specialist focus. Being a deep generalist with a specialist focus. This means that, listen, the world is becoming increasingly more specialized. You have talent all over the world that can actually do things in a very specialized way. You have technology commoditizing tasks as well. But a deep generalist is somebody that can bring different skill sets together. A deep generalist is somebody that can, understand what's happening in finance and media and entertainment and wherever else. It's pulling all those domains together. That's what a deep generalist is all about. I believe that this is a superhero skill in this sort of disrupted world. Now, how do you become a deep generalist? Well, I think there's three ways. Number one is embracing the irrational, like embracing the crazy. We're trained in school to think in data and systems and in efficiency, and just so much of the world is based on emotion and magic, which we're going to talk to you about in a little bit. So that's this idea of embracing the irrational. Number two is embracing the forgotten, like embracing the ignored. In my experience working with innovative organizations, all the disruptive ideas are from the people that are working on things in their basements, in their garages, and the people that are ignored, the people with dangerous ideas. So I want you to embrace the forgotten. That's another way of building this deep generalist mindset. And ultimately, it's embracing the outside. It's this idea of diversity, diverse thinkers, diverse people. We all know that when you learn faster when you bring people from the outside. This is how you become a deep generalist, and I believe that this is what's going to be the superhero skill in the future amidst all this crazy sort of future of jobs, future of skills conversation. Now, I want to talk to you about the second topic, which is really around my favorite topic in the world, which is around innovation. We're going to talk about this idea of innovation capital. And I'm going to get you to do a bit of an exercise. You see the QR code below me as well. I'm going to ask you this question, which is, if I gave you $1 million to invest in your business or in your region when it comes to innovation, how would you allocate it? So in the actual QR code, there's like a metric you can allocate like 100 points to some of these things. Is it product, technology, talent, brand, etc.? I want you to allocate that because I want to see what everybody has to say when it comes to this. I'm really curious. To me, one of the things that I would probably allocate it in is really creating more collisions. We've been in this pandemic for like 16 months, right? And I hope we can realize, and I know this is going to sound blasphemous and radical because a lot of us have been enjoying working from home, but I believe that working from home is actually terrible for long-term innovation. I know it's great for efficiency. You wake up in the morning, you get to your laptop and you're there, but it's bad for long-term innovation. So much of innovation is about creating that energy, that trust, creating momentum with one another. And in my experience, that's where you get sort of innovative ideas. It's not, unfortunately, it's not over Zoom, but it's when you're in person, when you're working on really challenging things. It's when you're sort of in the hallways and you're connecting with somebody that you haven't connected to before. Like, those things are so important as we move into this world. And I believe that the organizations that actually double down on building amazing real estate where you can create more collisions will ultimately increase innovation. But that's just a small take. But I want to know, Masa, from you, I asked this interesting sort of fun exercise, allocating your 100 points. What are people saying when it comes to innovation?
By far, talent is number one.
Oh my goodness, okay.
Which is dear to my heart. It's great that talent is number one, product technology is second, brand, process, and ecosystem is third.
Okay, fantastic. Well, listen, you broke my system here because I thought everybody would say a product and technology. And the reason why I thought that is because when I speak with most leaders, when they think about innovation, or when I talk to anybody, when I talk to innovation, they always think about the new product or the new technology, something that we can introduce to the market. When I think innovation can be so much more. It could be about, I look at innovation as a brain. And on the left side of the brain is the systems, it's the data, it's the efficiency, the logical plays, the rational plays, which is around what is our revenue model, our channels, our workforce, our process. But on the right-hand side of the brain is where we get the emotion, the magic. It's the customer experience, it's the content and commerce, it's collaborations, it's the community. There's so many more ways of thinking about innovation. It's not just about, everyone is looking for a playbook when it comes to innovation. And here's, in my experience, working in strategy, innovation, everyone's looking for a playbook. And to be honest with you, I built my entire career thinking that there was a playbook. But today we live in a world of anomalies, abundance, and algorithms. And if you're looking for a playbook when it comes to innovation, it doesn't really exist. And so to me, it's really about, and I guess the most important thing is that when it comes to strategy, increasingly I'm noticing that, so much of it is based on emotion. Let me show you how influential and how, in my experience, how important innovation is to building this within our regions and within our organizations. If you build innovation at the center of what you do, and you really think about innovation across your entire organization, not just product or technology, but really around revenue or talent, as you mentioned, the most important piece, or processes, or customer experience, community, etc. Once you start to innovate in one area, it inspires other folks to sort of innovate in the same area, and even others. Like, innovation is the most contagious thing in the world. That's why I love innovation. And once you start to innovate in different areas, you essentially create this culture of innovation. And the beautiful thing is that there's two byproducts that are created of this. Number one is that you're creating a flywheel when it comes to innovation. You're creating this momentum. And number two is what you're ultimately doing, in my mind, is you're increasing your chances of getting lucky. you're increasing your chance of getting lucky. You know, everyone wants to like have an ROI number when it comes to innovation. How much of the investments that we're putting in are going to result in X? But so much of innovation is creating luck. It's creating serendipity. It's about once you push yourself outside of your comfort zone, you're connecting with people that you've never connected to before. You're connecting with companies. You're reskilling your talent in new ways. So much of innovation is actually not measured. And I think that's the difficulty of being in sort of economic development. That's the challenge that Racine County has, is that economic development is that, you know, how do you measure some of this stuff? You know, how do you measure the pulse of the community and an innovation community? And I just believe some of the investments that you've made are really going to create greater luck and serendipity. You're going to be a catalyst for other companies to come through because, you know, you're essentially creating a magnet for other innovative companies and new industries to come in. And, you know, some of that, unfortunately, is sometimes you can't measure it, and sometimes you don't know where you're going to go. So I think that's one of the main pieces when it comes to innovation, that it creates unbelievable luck. And in order to do this, like in order to make innovation at the center of what you do, this is not like an organizational thing. Like this requires individuals to build their own, what I call individual innovation capital. Innovation capital is your ability for others to really believe in your ideas and for you to unlock resources in order to make these ideas happen. Innovation capital is not only important like from an organizational standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint as well. And I believe that whether you are the CEO or you are Sally from accounting, like your job is to build innovation capital. And it's building this muscle around innovation. You know, it's interesting, like a number of years ago, 2014, 2015, I was in Dubai. I was working for the Roads and Transportation Authority in Dubai. And I remember every time like I would start like a workshop with their group, I would ask them like, who's the most innovative person to you? And you know, normally in like North America, they would say like Branson or Zuckerberg or like Bezos. But everyone said, you know, Sheikh Mohammed, because what he was able to do was take this like coastal village in Dubai and turn it into a global financial real estate hub. And like, how are they able to do that? Well, I think what Dubai has really created is really this idea of innovation capital. So what they did was they started with a broader mission. I know in 2015, even in 2015, they're like, how do we become the happiest and smartest city by 2021? That was their vision. And they put all these things, all these initiatives together to create momentum that literally the people would believe that they want to be the smartest and happiest place. Even the people within government believed it. I mean, I would ask them, they believed it to the core. They created a movement around this. And ultimately, they doubled down on their moat. Their moat was their unfair advantage, which is their ability to mobilize talent to build unbelievable things. And so I believe a region can do this. I believe an organization can do this. You know, you look at, for example, quickly, a company like Salesforce, they also have built their innovation capital. Their mission was like, how do we take organizations to the cloud? And at that point, when they wanted to do that, like it sounded completely insane. But they had this idea. You know, they created a movement around what they were doing. They were almost anti-establishment. And that's why you have 170,000 people that want to go down to Dreamforce to hear about Salesforce's ideas. Like, they really create a movement around what they were doing. And ultimately, they sort of doubled down on their moat. Their unfair advantage was being sort of, you know, the cloud leaders, CRM leaders in the world. And so, again, innovation capital. A region can do it, an organization can do it, and ultimately, a leader can do it as well. So I just believe in this so much. Now, I erased the next piece, but the next question I want to ask you is, what do you think is the biggest obstacle to innovation? What do you think is the biggest obstacle to innovation? Put it in. I want to know. I have a poll there. Put it in. I want to see what people have to say. I'm getting so passionate about this, so I need to sit down for 2 seconds. You know, my epiphany working with some of the best companies in North America and around the world is that actually what holds people back when it comes to innovation is this idea of nostalgia. Sometimes we get really paralyzed around what's working today or what was working in the past around our business. It's called nostalgia. And it's funny because most of my experience is actually working with very established organizations. And what I notice is that the most established organizations, I know it sounds crazy, but the most established organizations are the most vulnerable to disruption. Let me repeat, the most established organizations, like the incumbents, are the most vulnerable to disruption. Why is that? By the way, the most established organizations actually have the best teams. They have the best talent. They're like going to all the conferences and all the events and hearing about all the new ideas and new ways of doing things, yet they're still the most vulnerable to disruption. The reason is because the most established organizations get really romantic, they get really nostalgic about their existing business model, their existing processes, and they get stuck when the environment changes around them. And by the way, the environment has just shifted completely, not only globally, but especially in Racine County. You have two meteorites. You had Foxconn and you had the pandemic. What a beautiful opportunity to change and to embrace disruption. Now, Masa, I'm going to come back to you. I put up this poll. What is the biggest obstacle to innovation? What do people have to say?
So the audience says is the lack of vision and strategy is the biggest obstacle to innovation.
And number two?
Number two is not adopting to emerging technologies, following by politics, no alignment. Okay,
great. Well, listen, I think lack of vision and strategy is definitely one. You know, I think it's interesting that most people selected that. Sometimes I ask organizations this, and a lot of them will say turf wars and politics and you know whatever else. But let me give you a way of innovating, of ultimately disrupting yourself, because I think what really gets in the way is it's ourselves, like it's our own beliefs. It's the fear of change. It's trying to change our organizations or our regions, and it's very difficult to do. Let me give you a way of doing this, and it's called denting the outside. Okay, this is the last time I use this. All right. I know we're in Wisconsin, so this is for Giannis. Okay. Just imagine there was a big net and I got it in. Let's take Giannis, by the way, let's take Giannis to the finals, okay? He needs it. Last 4 years, haven't been good. Let's take him to the finals. Okay, thank you. Thank you, producer Mazen, for that. Very eloquent sound effect. Okay, so this is this idea of denting the outside. It's a type of disruption strategy which I'd love for you guys to implement, okay? Now, the background around this is that, in my experience, if you try to innovate within your organization, normally what happens is that the immune system of the organization or the region or wherever else, maybe it's your family, wherever else, the immune system will try to reject it. And so it becomes very difficult to change the core of what you do. The best way of approaching innovation disruption is to actually create innovations outside of your core, like small experiments, maybe adjacent, maybe transformational experiments that are outside of what you're doing. It's taking a shot. It's taking a bet. And by the way, when you're playing in this space, it's going to be uncomfortable, scary, and lonely. And I know, like, you know, even with the Foxconn move, it was lonely, scary, and uncomfortable. And of course, you know, the way that things have transpired, now we have a new deal, and now we're thinking, how do we create sort of new innovations around what we have right now, which I think is really exciting. You know, if you look at every single disruptive company that has been around for a long time, they've fundamentally sort of disrupted themselves. I mean, if you look at, for example, Adobe, Adobe, you know, they basically disrupted themselves. You know, back in the day, you would get these you know, their software off the shelf. You go to like Best Buy or wherever else, and you know they saw the future of the cloud and SaaS, and so they made an investment. They said, how do we experiment on the side and start introducing a subscription service? And over the years, yes, in the first couple of years, they took a big hit in terms of the revenue. Yes, they did. But they eventually dented the outside, and now this has become the new core. They are fueling the creative revolution because they saw the future of cloud and SaaS. And by the way, it takes some really ambitious and courageous and bold leaders to figure out where the future is going to go and say, listen, this is where we're going to place our bet, and ultimately, hopefully, becoming our new core. By the way, sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes you try to innovate outside of what you do, and sometimes it doesn't work out. But you know what it does do? It always creates opportunity. It always creates luck, like I mentioned before. You connect with new people that you haven't connected before. You reskill your talent in new ways. So ultimately, actually, there's no downside to denting the outside, coming up with small experiments, with small teams and small sprints, and continuously trying to disrupt yourself. The punchline is that it's really about evolution at the end of the day. I mean, if you look at every company that has been around for, a decades plus, Amazon used to sell books, Shell actually sold seashells, Samsung sold Korean dried fish and noodles. Foxconn started selling plastics. Once you evolve, this is the core of disrupting yourself. And I really believe that transformation happens when you start to do the possible and then you end up doing the impossible. And, I'll sort of leave you with this. I know, there's been a huge meteorite hit in Racine County with Foxconn and also the pandemic. But I really believe that we can look at the pandemic as really a time machine. And everyone was sort of forced to the station. And it's funny, some people came to the station with really heavy bags, like bags of old ideas, old PowerPoints of bureaucracy and hierarchy and old ways of doing things. And some people came to the station with a light bag full of wonder, optimism, this idea of trying new ways of doing things. And I'm not a futurist, I'm like a practitioner. I can't predict the future, otherwise I would be in New Zealand right now, like sipping a margarita. I can't predict the future. But what I do know is that the future will reward those that come into this new world lightly. People that are nimble, flexible, experimental, and adopt this sort of disruptive mindset. I want to thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure to be with you. With that, I want to open it up to some questions from you. You can go in the Q&A function and do that. And by the way, before I get to the Q&A, Masa, I want to give a virtual round of applause for Masa, great moderator. Thank you so much. You're fantastic. I want to thank the production team, Mazen. I want to thank everybody at Foxconn, RCEDC. You guys have done a fantastic job with this. Congratulations to all the winners as well. I'm going to look at my producer, and he's going to give me a time. How much time do we have? And Masa, do we have some questions, by the way, coming through? Okay, let's get to it. And by the way, if you want to connect with me, if you have a private question you want to ask, you feel free to follow me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere, but that's probably the best place to follow me. More content on disruption, innovation, Canada, maple syrup. If you want to take that idea, take the Kringle, let's take it to the moon, as they would say.
Yeah, I got a confirmation that not to worry about time and that to keep going. They're loving it. No,
that's dangerous because we're going to go forever. We're going to go forever. Thanks, Mazen. Masa, what are people saying in the Q&A?
Okay, so if the core isn't willing to open their minds, how do you know whether to keep pushing or walk away?
Yeah, such a great question. If the core is not willing to open their minds. So I think the mindset of an innovator is, you can't convince, you have to persuade. And as an innovator, unfortunately, or fortunately, the thing that we need to build is this ability to be persuasive, persuade them with new ideas of doing things. I think there's a couple ways around this. Number one is that you can show, not tell, which is how can we show our ideas to our core in new ways, like whether it's something visual or maybe it's a very small experiment. I think that's one of the ways of doing that. Number two is just really finding champions or finding mentors that are willing to give you a shot within your organization. Right? And number three, unfortunately, if your core is not willing to change, if they're not willing to embrace new ways of doing things, then unfortunately you have to leave. Because there's no point working for somebody or working within an environment that's not open to new ideas or new ways of doing things. And I know that sounds harsh, but
yes.
That's my response to that. Thank you so much, Masa, for that. Another question?
There's a comment. So much of what you talked about hit on so many levels, not just growing or evolving businesses, but with self-growth. Yeah. So the message hits.
Well, listen, I appreciate that the message hits. And, you know, I really do believe that, you know, we can just, like, we have this like window of opportunity, right? And this window of opportunity to say, you know, things were sort of thrown, you know, for a loop. And like, we have this opportunity, this window to innovate. Because, you know, people are actually willing to try new ways of doing things now more than ever before. And I don't know, maybe the window will close, but maybe, you know, maybe it'll stay open. I just think that now is the time to go off and innovate. So thank you so much for that.
Okay, I have another one. With the era of the individual, how do you feel about ESOP plans as a motivator and freedom? ESOP plans.
EOSP. So I don't know what that means, but let me tell you about the age of the individual for a second. Like I said, I believe that the balance of power is shifting from institutions to individuals. I believe that today, like somebody today has the power of like 100-person firm, you know, back in the 90s. It's because like we have all this technology and media at our fingertips. Like now everyone has become like a media company themselves. Everyone now has a voice, and that gives you so much power. If you look at sort of the S&P 500 today, like, you know, they're all the big sort of tech companies. I believe, I know this sounds
One
like
more?
a
Okay.
idea, but in the future, we're going to see individuals crack that. You're already seeing individuals garner a lot of influence, and because of that, they're able to go into different verticals in all sorts of industries. I mean, it's interesting and wild to see. I'll give you a couple examples. You know, you have somebody like, some kids are watching this, and you might know Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is like a YouTuber. This is a kid that just creates YouTube videos. He's created this unbelievable audience and community. And like a number of months ago, he created this thing called a Mr. Beast burger, which my team tried. We didn't like it, but it's interesting that somebody like that can actually go into a vertical that he's never been in before, like a restaurant business, and that's wild that somebody can do that. That's the power of where we can go with sort of this age of the individual, and now with like, you know, remote work and listen, this is entire like this is something that I'm really passionate about, but I believe that we're entering into like a creative renaissance when it comes to the individual, and I'm really, really excited about that.
I have an interesting question.
Okay, let's go.
Will I have a job in the future? A banker asks.
Okay, will you have a job in the future? Well, listen, the first thing you got to do is you got to go to willrobotstakemyjob.com and then see if you're going to have a job. Now, listen, of course you're going to have a job. Listen, especially when it comes to financial institutions, like the reason why they haven't really been disrupted is because all the financial institutions, they're embracing disruption, they're embracing innovation. Yes, you know, some of the things are very old school, but ultimately the job of the banker will evolve. It's going to be a lot more experiential. It's going to be a lot more advisory. It's going to be less transactional. And it's just about this idea of reskilling. And if you were a banker, first I would look at that site, Will Robots Take My Job, and see if your job will be disrupted. And number two, this is the beautiful opportunity to retrain, reskill, find new ways of doing things, connecting with people in new ways. Like, I think as an individual, your job is to continuously find new ways of doing things, and being uncomfortable enough to like go down the mountain. Like everybody wants to go up the mountain, but nobody wants to restart and go down the mountain again. And I think that process is so important, not only for a banker, but for anybody really. And with that, it was an honor. It's a privilege to be here with you guys today. I can't wait to see the unbelievable things that come out of this county. Again, it was an honor to be here. Thank you guys so much. See you soon.